Hey, you guys. So I wanted to share something with you guys. I started to share this yesterday when I was driving, and my service kept going in and out. So I wanted to share this, and this was like a part of the message that I preached yesterday in Du Bois, Pennsylvania. But anyway, got thinking about my trip to Africa over the winter. Um, so when I was in Africa, like one of the things that hey, what's up, Garrett? One of the things that affected me the most when I was in Africa was the street kids. Um, there was everywhere you went. I mean, they were just everywhere. As soon as we stepped out of the hotel, they were there. Like if they saw a white person, they were on you because you know the white people have money, and that was their thinking. So over the course of the week, there was two in particular that I really connected with, and that a few others connected with, and their names were Kevin and Moses. They had lived on the streets for years, and the way that they survived was just simply by begging and stealing. And the reason why there was so many street kids was because some years ago, I guess there was a civil war, and there was a civil war, and Barb's on here. Barb, I'm talking about Kevin and Moses. Um, but there was a civil war, and a bunch of the fathers fought and died, leaving, hey Wendy, leaving the wives with all of these kids to care for, and they couldn't care for the kids. And so what happened was a lot of the mothers just hit the road and kind of let the kids fend for themselves, basically. And in Kenya, it's not like the United States where the government will flip the bill. Basically, if the parents leave, the kids are on their own, and really it doesn't matter how old they are. But anyway, while we were there, like I was saying, we connected with two kids, Kevin and Moses, and these kids. It was so terrible because they'd walk around with bottles, like soda bottles, with like that much shoe glue at the bottom of the bottle, and they would just walk around and they just huff these bottles of glue. Hey Teresa. So they'd huff these bottles of glue, and they'd get high off the glue. And another reason why they did it was to suppress their appetite, because these kids were starving. So anyway, like I was saying, we ended up meeting uh, Kevin and Moses, and every time we went out, I mean, these kids were right there, and they were just sweet, sweet boys. And one of the pastors, one of the bishop, he had a heart to start an orphanage. Cool. Hey, Christina. So Barb and Christina were with us, and actually Barb is pretty integral to this story. Barb Shaw. So anyway, one of the bishops, he had a heart to start an orphanage, and basically he had the space to start this orphanage, but the thing that he was lacking was funds. Well, anyway, they Barb and my friend Peter told the bishop that basically they would pay $50 a month for these kids to live at this nursing home. They were going to support the kids, and so I remember, like, Barb, she asked them, would you guys like to go with the bishop and live with him? And basically they were like, yeah. And so it was the coolest thing. Barb took them out. And I know she probably hates me saying her name, but oh well, deal with it. Barb took them out, and she bought them new clothes. Okay, she bought these kids new clothes. She brought them back to her hotel room. Okay, and I mean, and now mind you, these kids were absolutely filthy. I mean, they were dirty, and they were dirty, and they smelled, and their clothes were tattered, and I mean, they just looked rough. So anyway, she brings them into the hotel. She brings them up into her room, and she gives these kids showers. Okay. Next thing you know, Kevin and Moses, they come down. They come down the stairs, and they come into the restaurant. And I mean, they looked like $1,000,000. They looked like brand new kids. Like, they didn't look like the same people. So like I said, they come down, and they sit at the table there at the restaurant, and basically, the team is just basically showering these kids with, just giving them whatever they want. And so they sat at the table, and they ate whatever they wanted. They drank. They were chugging soda like it was going out of style. They were like little kings. Okay. And Kevin and Moses, they were psyched to get off the streets, and they were excited to have a home, and they were excited to have nice clothes, and they were excited because they were going to start school in a couple days. And so then, we ended up, the next day or whatever, we ended up leaving, and I remember, like, as we were leaving, Kevin and Moses getting in the bishop's van. And I'll never forget that. They're driving off to their new life. I mean, they had it made. They had it made. Well, anyway, we left, and then I guess from what I understand, the very next day, hey Paula, the very next day, Moses ended up running away, and Kevin he lasted a couple days. But went to school and ended up getting into a fight, or something happened. He picked up a rock, he threw it at some girl, hit her in the head, and I guess she was bleeding all over the place. She needed medical attention, and Kevin ran away after that. He was gone. Okay, so the very next, and so then after that, like, the pastor, like the Bishop Vovak, went out, and he was out in the streets, and he's looking for these kids, and he couldn't find them anywhere. They were disappeared. Nobody seemed to know where they went. So here they were adopted, and their rags were removed. They were cleansed of all the dirt of the streets. Okay? They were given a place at the table. Yet in the end, they chose the life of an orphan. They went back to the dirty rags. They went back to begging. They went back to fending for themselves. They went back to the bondage, which they wrongly perceived as freedom. Like, they thought, like, the way they saw it was living in a house, living under certain rules, was bondage, and they perceived freedom as being out on the streets, when really, when they ran out that door, they were running into their death. Okay? But the reason I wanted to share this is because at times, every single one of us, we're all like Kevin and Moses. We choose to leave the place of peace and provision and stability of our Father's house to chase the wind. But Kevin and Moses had no idea that they were running into their death, and a lot of times when we run into sin, we end up doing the same, and we engage in sin. We put our grave clothes back on. It's like we run into sin. It's like all of a sudden we dress ourselves back in our filthy rags, and we substitute a life of provision and peace for a life of struggle and bondage. And as we run out the door of the Father's house, running into sin, the feeling, okay, as we're running into sin, may feel exhilarating, but then we wake up the next morning more broken and more dirty, more hungry and alone. So we run even harder, trying to recreate that exhilaration, but we just feel more and more empty. And sometimes there's some people, and we've all been there. I know that I've been there. Sometimes we run so hard. Sometimes there's some people that have run so hard that they've forgotten what it's like to sit at the Father's table, while others remember but feel too ashamed to return covered in dirty rags. There's people out there, they've been running out there, and the thought of God and what they've known and the way that it used to be, it's like in their minds, but they refuse to return because they feel so much shame. How could I go back after I've done what I've done? God would never accept me back. They don't want to go back dirty. Neither understand that the Father is out in the streets, out in the dirt, and he's like that pastor. Like when we run, the Father is out in the streets looking for us. He's calling out to us to bring us home. And some people, they return, but many people don't ever return. And I don't know, I just felt to kind of get on here and say this. Maybe that's you. Maybe you're that person that's been kind of running out. Maybe right now you're out in the streets, and you're thinking about what you left. You're thinking about the place of peace that you were in, and now here you are in the muck and the mire. You're in the muck and the mire. You're in the dirt, and you're thinking, boy, I can't go home. And the emptiness is getting emptier and emptier, and the party's over, and maybe you're just there alone with your thoughts. Just want you to know something, that you haven't run so far that Jesus is not willing to go as far as you are. Okay? You have not run so far that Jesus is not willing to go as far as you are. The Father's calling you back. Okay? I don't care where you are. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care what you're into. If you are listening to what I'm saying right now, then the Father is calling you back. You're not listening to this. This is not just by chance that you're hearing what I'm saying, okay? It's not by chance that you've listened this long, okay? Father God is calling you back, okay? He's calling you back to the palace. He's calling you back to the table. He's calling you back to the seat of provision. It's waiting for you. Nobody's taking your seat. And it's time for you to come home. The Father's calling. I feel like this is a pivotal time for some of you. Okay? This is a pivotal time for some of you. Will you return? Are you going to come back? Or are you going to believe the lies that the enemy's speaking to you? Okay? Because the enemy is telling you lies, telling you, oh, you've crossed the line. Oh, you can't return. Oh, you've gone too far. Blah, 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 blah. Shut up. That's not true. You got a choice. Come back to the Father. Come back to the place of provision. Come back to the place of peace, to the place of security. Come back to the place where your needs are met, or you keep running into destruction. My advice to you is that you come home. Okay? So that's what I had to say. So I hope that I believe that God had me do this. I believe that God had me share what I just shared. I believe that God is speaking to some people here. You know, like it's time to leave the pig pen. You know, one of the crazy things that I realized really quick, myself, and just to share a little bit about me, was that for years and years and years and years and years, okay, I was like, my father was always talking to me about Jesus, and I never wanted any part of it. You know, like, he would sit me down. Susie, you remember this? He'd trap me. Susie Reardon. My father would. I'd come home and my father would sit me down and he would just start talking to me about Jesus, and he like had me trapped for hours, and I just like, and I was like, I had a respect for my dad, I had a reverence for my dad, that I would sit there and I go, okay, you know, and I would act like I was listening to him, but he would like, I mean, he would like hammer me, and you know, and I knew that what he was saying was true, but it was kind of like the way I viewed it was, I viewed the kingdom of God as a bunch of rules and a bunch of regulations. I viewed Christianity as rules and regulations, and you know, at the same time, what I wanted to do is I wanted to smoke weed, and I wanted to drink, I wanted to have sex, I wanted to do all that stuff that I wanted to do, and it was like, you know, it was kind of like, you know, the rules and regulations over on this side, or all this fun over on that side. And so I was like, no thanks, God. And I kept running, and I was running hardcore. And you know, one day I realized, you know, I woke up, man. One day I got old, and all of a sudden, the party was over, and things were no longer fun anymore. And I made a decision. I made a decision that I was that I'm not that it's time to stop running. And I went to Jesus, and I realized really quickly that what I viewed as bondage, you know, being in Christ, was actually freedom. You need to understand that thing that you're chasing after, that, you know, you're out there living your own life, doing your own thing, and you think that it's free. It's not freedom, man. Actually, you are in bondage. And I realized really quick, like I said, you know, I went to Christ, and I realized that was freedom, and I realized really quickly that those things that I was like running to for my peace and for my joy were actually the things that were driving me down into the dirt. And look, I'm not just saying this because I'm a minister, and I'm not just saying this because, well, it's something that I have to say as a Christian, okay, but I'm saying this because it is truth. Okay, as soon as I gave my life to Jesus, all of a sudden I had eyes to see what I was really in pursuit of. Okay, maybe you're listening to this and it makes absolutely no sense to you. Well, I don't know what to tell you. Give your life to Jesus and it'll make sense. Give your life to Jesus. If you're sick of hanging out in the pig pen, if you're sick of eating the slop, if you're sick of running through the thorns and the thistles, it's time to come home. Jesus is calling you, man. That's why you're watching this. That's why you're hearing what I'm saying. Jesus is calling you home. So it's up to you, though, dude. You have a choice. You can either continue to do the same crap that you've been doing for years and years and years, getting the same results, or you can make a decision that you're going to do something different, that you're going to go to Jesus, and you're going to let him change your life. And look, man, I am the most real dude that you will ever see in your life, okay? I'm a see it to believe it kind of guy, and I've seen it, all right? So anyway, give your life to Jesus, all right? God bless you guys, and we'll see you soon. All right, bye. I can't turn this thing off.